In this slide, you can see a summary of the most important costing-related master data elements. During this lesson, we will quickly go through all these elements as they will be needed for our costing scenario. I will not go into details how all costing and manufacturing-related master data is created and maintained, as this has been discussed in length during our previous product cost controlling course. All the master data that I'm using during this course is pretty much the same that was used during the previous course. If you have already maintained the data in the environment you are currently using, all you need to do is copy them to the plant that we will be using for manufacturing during this course. As part of the course materials, you can find an Excel file that provides a summary of all cost element, cost center, manufacturing, and material master data used for our costing scenario. This file contains almost the same data that was used during the previous course. But for this course, our cost center structure is a little bit simplified so we can concentrate more on material ledger specific topics. This file will be quite useful for us as it allows us to quickly compare the results between SAP's regular costing and actual costing. It is not necessary for you to extract the same data that I'm using for the example scenario. You can just as well create your own scenario with your own materials and manufacturing related master data and just apply the steps demonstrated in this course for your own costing model. But if your experience with SAP is still limited, it might make sense to first copy my scenario and create your own after that. Let's start our recap with the cost elements. Here you can see all the cost elements that I will be using. In IDES, the cost elements have not been created by default for the controlling area we are using during this course, so we need to first maintain them. Let's open transaction KA01 that is used to create primary cost elements. If you have already created the cost elements for the controlling area we used during the previous course, you can use this copy function here to create the cost elements in no time. After you press enter, data from the previous controlling area will be automatically copied, and all you need to do is to save the cost element. In addition to these primary cost elements, you also need to create one secondary cost element, which is this machine hours cost here. As you know, secondary cost elements are created using a separate transaction KA06. As I have already created this cost element, I can use KA03 to display for you. As you can see, the cost center category type for this secondary cost element is 43. The cells with blue background in the Excel file are the cost centers we will be using. Cost centers are created with transaction KS01. Again, use the copy function if you have already maintained the cost center for the previous controlling area. I have already maintained all the cost centers, but I can show you cooking cost center as an example. For the costing scenario I'm using, we will need just one activity type. Just to refresh your memory, activity types are cost drivers measured in units of time or quantity and are used to collect costs from cost centers. Let's open transaction KL03 to have a quick look at our machine hours activity type. This machine hours is used to allocate costs for the process order we will be creating later. When creating the activity type, remember to make sure that it has been linked with the secondary cost element. Next, let's review the materials we will be using. Here you can see the raw materials used to manufacture pulp, and also the finished pulp material. It takes 3 different raw materials to produce pulp. This fourth material here is not a raw material, but a byproduct that we will be receiving when we are producing pulp. As this byproduct is very useful and it has a monetary value, we need to take that into account when we are calculating costs for the finished pulp. Let's open transaction MM03 to check the first raw material on the list, sulfuric acid. I have created this material using the standard raw material type ROH. As you can see, I have maintained all the basic views normally opened for raw materials. Let's open the Accounting 1 tab for the material. This tab now looks a little different when Material Ledger has been activated. You can see that there is a checkbox indicating that Material Ledger has been activated for this material. You can also see that there is a value 3 maintained in the Material Price Determination field. This single and multi-level rule was selected as the default rule in the Material Ledger Activation configuration screen we examined during the previous chapter. This now means that the material is valued at a fixed standard price for at least one whole period, and a periodic unit price is calculated for the material during the period end closing. You can see standard price maintained as the price control indicator here. Here we can see the different valuation views that were defined in the configuration we examined in the previous chapter. The first view is for the legal valuation, and the currency is Chinese yuan. The second view is for the group valuation, and the currency is in euros. We can also see the view for profit center specific valuation. When Material Ledger is activated, there is a different tab for each period. This Material Price Analysis button here is one of the most important transactions for actual costing, but instead of talking about it now, we will save it for later. Let's also have a quick look at our finished material, eucalyptus pulp. This material is using the standard material type FERT. Note that the basic unit of measure is tons. You can see that value 3 has been maintained as the material price determination key also for this material. If you have already created these materials for the plant we used during the previous course, all you need to do is expand these materials for the new plant we will be using. You can do this by using the copy function available in MM01 transaction. Just enter the material number you want to copy here, and then select the views for which you want to expand the materials. Then select organizational levels and insert the old plant number and storage location number here. In the next section, we will be reviewing the bill of materials and recipe used for our costing scenario.